Greetings all, Ferrari Man 601 here. Welcome back to Flight Simulator 2020 and welcome to Nellis Air Force Base, Las Vegas, Nevada. We've got the F-18 here, and I've already made a few videos with this aircraft, but I thought I would just share some thoughts on what I think is a long overdue official addition to Microsoft Flight Simulator, but also to kind of give it a little bit of a review and just show you what it is that you're getting here, because I think some people have had their expectations a little bit too high, and I'm not entirely sure what has been the reason for that other than people who are really into other sims like DCS, and we're expecting a super authentic study level aircraft with this, because it's not at all what this is. It's a lot of fun regardless, but study level teaching tool it really isn't. In a cockpit here with everything shut down, well, your modeling in here is pretty cool. You have a lot of switches and knobs and other controls that are visually modeled. However, the number of them that actually do anything is fairly limited, and we'll be using some of these as we go along here. We've got a flight plan loaded up, VFR only. Eventually we want to end up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but not really that long of a distance for an airplane like this. That will do Mach 1.6 or so at cruising altitude. But we'll get everything fired up here. Got a battery switch on, and everything starts to come to life. The gyros all spool up and everything cages, as you'd expect. However, to get the engine started, I can't really figure out how to do it. I know that this switch over here, labeled off L and R, those are the engine starters, but I don't know how to get the fuel going all by itself, so we'll do the automatic engine start sequence with the Control E command. However, we will get the APU up. That's something I can do as much. And that starts up as you'd expect. Don't have any readout on the APU, but you hear it spooling up. And it's just about there. The APU is up. We'll do our Control E and we'll get our engines going. This is our engine status panel right now. See 0 RPM left and right, but we hit Control E and immediately the left-hand engine starts to come up. You can see the nozzle will start to open up. Right now it's at 0 on engines 1 and 2, but you will see the engine nozzle start to open up in a moment. RPM coming up. Fuel flow is at 0. When we get to 22, 23 on the RPM, you'll see fuel flow jump up to 10 and we'll get light off. There we go. Got a fuel flow and we got light off, temperature coming up and oil pressure coming up. Nozzle is at 100 and it'll start to crank back down. The idle nozzle position is at 80. And the right-hand engine is coming up. Wait for the fuel flow, again at about 22, 23% RPM. There it is. And a light up. At the same time, the APU will shut itself down, and that actually just occurred. You'll hear that spooling down perhaps. And pressurization comes up. The left engine is at a good idle. Right engine will soon be there. APU is spooling down. Alright, so we got 2 engines stabilized at idle. They're where they should be. Check our generators are on. They come on automatically, left and right. Battery switch stays on. Other than that, we will spread our wings. They're folded right now. We'll spread them. There we go. Looks like we got some close range haze close to the ground. Wings are out, leading edge flaps extend. Flaps out. Flaps are in 2 positions. You have half and full, so they're full right now. Bring them up to half, and then back to auto. You cannot entirely retract the flaps. What you do is when you retract the flaps all the way up to their first detent, they actually go into a completely automatic mode. The flaps are actively managed by the fly-by-wire control system, so they are actually critical in terms of flight control. They're not just flaps. So we will take off with full flaps and we'll very quickly retract them into the auto position. Other than that, we got full tanks gas. Got our altimeter set. And we will take off. We will go into full military power, which is 80% RPM. Or 80% throttle, rather. About 97, 98% RPM there. We'll release our parking brakes and we start to roll. Bits of rudder movement. We get up to 100 knots. Rotate speed is around 140. We'll pull back. And we are up with a positive rate. Bring the gear up. Start to throttle back right away, and we'll bring our flaps into the auto D10. There we go. We'll keep it around 250, 300 knots here at low level. It's a Nellis Tower radio in us. All right, we'll say goodbye to Nellis. And we'll get ourselves situated here. The airplane, it does have autopilot. It doesn't work very well. It's basically an altitude hold and a heading hold. However, the flight control system also does its own fairly good job of setting its trim so that you maintain whatever vector you leave it at, even in the automatic, in the manual mode as it is right now. So this airplane will effectively track straight and level as we have it. Little deviations here in our altitude as our speed changes, but for the most part, it'll maintain a fairly straight and level course. And here is our map display. This is actually our primary means of navigation. You can see there we're going to have a waypoint. Use the mode here to set waypoints, and you can see that it will select waypoint 1, which is Albuquerque. That is going to be about 270 degrees off the heading. And on the HUD, we can see that we're currently heading about 211, 212. And we'll be making a right-hand turn momentarily to get us on our vector to Albuquerque. Look at Las Vegas down below. The strip, right about there. Photogrammetric scenery going on. Not too bad. A little bit of stuttering as you expect, as it's loading things up in real time here. But recognizable landmarks. There's the pyramid thing. Cool. I know that's got a name. I think it's Luxor. I don't know. All I know is that there are a whole bunch of pillaged Egyptian artifacts in there that really don't belong anywhere near Vegas, but there they are. And of course, McCarran Airport there in the background. And a spire of light coming out the top of the pyramid. Interesting. Very, very cool. Getting into some of this low-level fog. Looks like we'll be above most of it. But that's not bad. Other displays that are available here on our right-hand MFD, you can see there are a whole bunch of screens and other pages that are just not implemented. You can see there. But most of these are not there. You can get an HSI up if you want. This is basically a repeater of our map display. So go into sensors, which is not implemented, all kinds of things not implemented there. But regardless, you've got your repeater of your primary flight instruments, basically the HUD and an artificial horizon down in the left MFD. So that's pretty useful. And Whiskey 1 there in the lower right of the HUD, that is our distance to our waypoint, which is Albuquerque. So we are going to start turning, and we're going to get onto course. We'll fly probably around 268 to 271. try to close distance. Perhaps that's not where we're supposed to be. All right, then. All right, showing about 043 would be our correct course. We were looking at the back course, I guess. Yep, that would explain it. Still trying to get used to all the instrumentation in this thing, but it does what it does, no problem. So about 5,300, 5,400 feet above sea level. Remember, we are quite a ways above sea level at the ground here in this part of the world. Our center display here is just basically the onboard avionics, your target computer, fire control systems, and things like that for the weapons, which we don't have, of course. And then your autopilot controls will be in there as well, which we are not going to be using at all. Tried to use them on a shorter flight, and I just found them to not do what I thought they would do, and to be overall a bit of an annoyance in trying to fly the airplane, so we're not going to use them. Other important bits of instrumentation on the HUD. Obviously, you've got your compass up across the top. You've got an attitude indicator in the center that shows actually shows your pitch, and it shows your roll. They have hash marks there going up and down showing degrees of pitch. The right-hand box is our altimeter, and above that, the 885 or so that you see right there is a vertical speed indicator. Obviously, it'll show a negative value if we're descending. And the left-hand box is our speed readout. That's knots, 355 right about now. Below that, the alpha is the angle of attack indicator. 1.0 is effectively straight and level, so we're right there. Below that, the M, that's the Mach meter. We are at 0.59 Mach. And then below that is the G indicator. We're going to set a course 090 here. Obviously, that's what did it. I had set the waypoint back to Nellis, so that would explain it. 090 is going to be east, and that is where Albuquerque is. All right, so we're back together here in terms of navigation. Only spent a day with the airplane, and I don't really know what I'm doing yet. Now this makes some more sense. That's Lake Mead, obviously. Right there is Nellis, where we took off from. And that, I believe, is Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do is throttle up the full military power again. We're going to get into a climb. After all, this thing is a fighter, so we can climb pretty severely. Already over 11,000. You can see our rate of ascent, over 17,000 feet a minute. Crank down that pitch a little bit. 100-degree pitch angle. Still climb at 12,000 feet per minute. It's pretty wild. Go outside, you see all that? Yeah. And the Las Vegas area very quickly starts to disappear. You can see we have got 408 nautical miles to go to our destination. That is going to shrink very rapidly. We're at 243 knots indicated. That's Mach 0.55. 21,700 feet. I will want to cruise here at between 35 and 40,000. We'll just sort of let the airplane do a cruise climb once we get up there. See, the leading edge flaps are still extended a bit, and again, they are entirely automatic, as are the trailing edge flaps. Getting some turbulence. It's 26,000 feet. Definitely getting some turbulence up here. Going over some mountain ridges. No problem. And you see the leading edge flaps there constantly making adjustments here. Some upper level winds for sure. Then pushed around a little bit. Now if we want to light the burners, you have to assign a key to enable burner and then just throttle all the way up. Nozzles open up, afterburners light, and now you really start to accelerate again. Go outside and show you the afterburner effects. There you go, we're contrailing. And there are the afterburners. It's getting a little bit better against the sky, but lots and lots of power. Still getting that turbulence. 34,000 feet. $35,000. Start to level off a bit. Still want to keep the airplane in a little bit of a climb. Come out of afterburner. Full military power. 0.85 Mach. Still climbing. 36,000. Cool. 0.88. Outside, we'll keep contrailing all the way now. Nice visuals. At any rate, we're at Mach 0.92. I'm going to throttle back a little bit. We can slow down a touch. Because as we go through the Mach, I want to be outside in that drone camera view, just so that you can hear the difference as you go through the speed of sound. Depending on where you are, you will or will not hear a sonic boom when you accelerate through the Mach. The reason for this is the shock waves, of course, are not symmetrical. And they have modeled that depending on your altitude and your speeds. In other words, your Reynolds number is modeled here. And you get aerodynamic perturbations and things that we'll talk about later on. But I just want you to hear the difference when you're in front of the airplane when you go through the Mach. So we're at full military power and going into burner, and we'll immediately go into the showcase camera. So burners are lit, showcase camera, and just listen. You can hear the engines right now. As we go through the Mach, though, listen for the difference. Plane will pitch up. That's when you know we're getting close. Aha. So it did not happen. Why did it not happen? We didn't actually break the Mach. You You see, here's our Mach meter, 0.99, and we're just holding there. Why did that happen? Well, your angle of attack needs to be just right in order actually to go through the sound barrier. If your angle of attack is too high, what happens is, and what just happened there, is the shockwave will effectively attach itself to the underside of the airplane, but you won't actually punch through it. When you don't punch through it, you start to surf on your own shockwave, which will stop your acceleration, but it gives you a ton of lift, which is a good thing, because Mach tuck is what got pilots killed in the early days of supersonic flight. However, it's not what you want if you're going to try and break through the speed of sound. So we need to try that again, because I do want you to hear the sound difference. We're getting jet stream buffeting right now as well, I believe. Alright, light the burners. Burners are lit. And you'll see a pitch upset as we approach the Mach. And again, hopefully we get through it. Doesn't appear that it's going to work. We're right on the border there. Oh boy, that's not normal. 0.64, 0.63. What happened here? 119. We lose engines here. Temp is at 999. RPM is going crazy. You get a compressor stall or 45,000 feet. That's not normal. Sounds like the engines are running. Whoa. Okay. Let's get some lower altitude here because I'm starting to get some trouble. Okay, well this is very strange. I've never been in this flight regime before. We lose the engines. I don't think we lost them. They're responding. The temperature went off scale high. We might have gotten a compressor stall. I'm not sure. I've never had that happen before. Back at 39,000. Well, this is weird. So back at 38,800. Back to idle thrust. They respond normally. They appear to respond normally. We still got fuel flow and oil pressure. That's fine. Back to full thrust. Okay. All right. We'll light the burners again. 0.92, 0.93. Go outside. Hopefully I can finally illustrate what I want to illustrate. There we go. Okay, so you just heard the engine noise go away, and that's because we are now ahead of the shockwave. So we are no longer impacted by the sound of the airplane because the sound of the airplane is behind us. So we are in supersonic flow right now, but at some point we will cross that shock boundary and you will hear the sonic boom as we get there. As we move aft, we'll find the shock boundary and you'll hear that. So listen. there it was. So now we're back in subsonic flow. All of that compression obviously stacked up at the shock boundary. And as you cross that shock boundary, all that compression is released relative to the observer, and you hear it as a boom. We're continuing to accelerate, so now we are back ahead of the shock boundary without moving our eye point. As we move aft again, and there we go again. So our area in terms of where we are ahead or behind the shock front depends on the speed of the aircraft, as you would expect it to. So that's all very, very cool. That angle of the shock boundary obviously is entirely dependent on the speed of the airplane, and that is referred to as the Reynolds number. So they have properly modeled supersonic airflow, and that's a very cool thing. And that, I think, is the coolest part of this airplane and the coolest part of enabling supersonic flight finally in Flight Simulator. Because, yeah, the airplane looks cool. It flies pretty nice, but, you know, I've got to do the automatic engine start. I can't really do anything with the autopilot, so it's annoying. It does not have the fidelity in terms of all of the systems and subsystems that you can interact with and have it work reasonably well in a realistic manner. But what you can do with it is break the Mach, and that's a big deal for this sim. Meanwhile, we are 289 nautical miles away from Whiskey 1. So we got a little while to fly, but at Mach 1.59, come up to 1.6 in a moment, all of that distance is going to melt away. The other thing that you can definitely feel will be from a distance what the sonic boom feels like, what it sounds like, and all these other things. So if we move away from our airplane a bit, we're just going to let it pass us at a distance, and we just let the camera stop where it is, you're going to get the boom start to propagate differently at different distances. So just listen to this. So that's pretty cool. Reset our position. Start to move away again. Just let the airplane pass us, but we'll let it pass directly in front of us, basically. Now listen to this. So you get a sense of the different sounds that you get depending on where you are and all of this stuff, and it's cool. And of course, from ground level it'll sound different versus if you're above the airplane as the observer. So all kinds of really cool things they have thought about in implementing all of this. It's really, really cool. Zoom in on the airplane. All right, well, that's not going to work, but there we go. So it sounds different yet again. So all kinds of distances and angles start to come into the equation here, and it's really, really immersive in that regard. Go well below and ahead. That's That's just so cool. But it is a really authentic sounding sonic boom. It's not just a random bang. There is a double boom that you get because of the shock waves that propagate from the nose and from the tail of the airplane. If you've ever heard a sonic boom in reality, you know that it's really it's a set of twin bangs that you get because of how the shock wave is propagating, and you hear that here in the sim. That's absolutely great. Meanwhile, our distance continues to fall to nothing, 222 nautical miles, and closing very quickly at Mach 1.6. How are our engines doing? 722. That's cool. We got a fuel low. How much fuel do we have on board? 44%. We're going to cheat a bit and just top it off again. There we go. The wonders of simulation. Obviously, we're burning fuel way too fast, and that's because we're in full afterburner and just going. If we come out of afterburner, we just go back to full military power, you'll see that the airplane will slow down, but not all that much, all things considered, and it will just continue to cruise here supersonic for a long time. Eventually, it will go subsonic again, but, you know, it's pretty good. Again, if we pull away, let the airplane fly right past us. That's so cool. I could just amuse myself forever doing that. Still 1.3. We are decelerating, obviously, but it's fairly gradual. And of course, if we go back into afterburner, start to accelerate again real quick. $177 nautical miles out now. Really nice. Unfortunately, there's really not all that much to do during flight. I mean, we don't really have the subsystems to play with in here. And basically it's just lining up the needles on the compass and making sure you stay there. This is definitely not the sort of airplane that's designed for long-haul cross-country flying. It's designed for air-to-air engagements for the most part. But what is cool, I will say, is when you look down and you see ground speed is 954 knots, that is something. And it really does bring my hopes up for, in the future, a really good high-fidelity Concorde mod. And our RPM is going crazy, 44,693 feet. We need to start going down again. Temperature. Yeah, I think what's going on there is a compressor stall. Because now the temperatures are back to normal and the RPMs are back to normal. Yeah. I think that's altitude related. Haven't encountered that before. I don't know if it's a compressor stall. I don't know if it's air density associated with the Mach number that we've got, because I know that these engines, no turbine engine really likes supersonic flow, so they have all sorts of different schemes with the air inlets to slow that down so that they get the shock wave out in front of the engine. Because if you get the shock wave in the engine, you break up all the airflow and it's just not going to do anything. So I don't know if that has something to do with it as well. At any rate, 133 nautical miles out from Albuquerque, we might even be able to get them on the radio now. Not quite yet. Be there soon, though. Still getting airports in Arizona. .116 out. Yep, nothing quite yet. See ridiculously far from up here, though. Just ridiculously cool stuff. All right, 96 to go. I'd like to get them on the radio. Not quite going to happen yet. snow. 73, Mark 73. Doing basically 1 nautical mile every 3.5 seconds. At any rate, what we do need to start thinking about is slowing down and getting down from this ridiculous altitude. And all of that, there we go, the aptly named Sunport.
Albuquerque Tower at man 601 is 590 miles west of lake level 445 with India to land.
FM 601 Albuquerque Tower. Altimeter 30.09 at 19er. Enter left base runway 17.
Runway 17.
Enter left base runway 17.
Now imagine being tower controller there and getting a call up from somebody saying that they're 59 miles away at 45,000 feet and they want to land. I think I'd be asking to confirm all of that. So, when we come out of Mach, you'll get a boom outside no matter where you are, so we will bring our engines back to idle. We'll let the airplane slow down. You'll get the airplane pitch up as the shock wave starts to come forward and eventually detaches, and you'll get the boom as we go subsonic. Wait for the pitch upset to happen. And there it was. So a little bit of a pitch down, a little bit of a pitch up, and then boom, shockwave has come forward and it's now detached. So 0.9 Mach now, 29 nautical miles away. And remember, we want runway 17. So we're going to start a very rapid descent. I think, unless I'm very much mistaken. No, that's not it. That's it. Right out ahead. Cool. And of course the river valley and all kinds of stuff here, which is where the city is. So we got the airport in sight. We were on runway 17. Which is going to be running off in roughly southerly direction, so basically 90 degrees opposed to where we're headed right now, which means we're going to want to turn. "17 nautical miles out. Yep. Runway 17 in sight. Cool. pressurization system is reacting to the altitude changes, probably doing a cabin pressure dump. So now we're getting to the point where we no longer really need it. Through 20,000 feet. Got some speed brake action going here. Okay, clear to land, runway 17.
Cleared to land runway 17 FMAN 601.
Okay. Runway 17, I believe, is 9,997 feet. So we'll bring our flaps out to half. Gear coming. Gear down. Flaps full. More speed brake action going on. Cars on the runway. It's a bit of fun. Says runway 17's closed. Not gonna believe that. Coming down. Touchdown. On the brakes. So 48 minutes, 18 seconds after we started the video, 400 something nautical miles away, we're on the ground in Albuquerque. That's fast. Turn off here.
FMAP 601, turn next taxiway. FMAP 601, contact ground on 121.9er.
219er.
Going to 121.9er FMAN 601.
We will not actually be contacting ground. We'll just be parking the airplane up where we sit. So we bring it to a stop, much like we had with our engine start. We don't have a proper way to shut the engines down either, other than to use the automatic sequence. So we'll fold our wings up, and then we will hit Control-Shift-E. We've done that. So now there will be an automatic sequence which is starting, which will shut both engines down simultaneously. There is about a 30-second pause between when you hit Control-Shift-E to when the engines actually shut down. So just bear that in mind. But the engines will shut down. Let's watch our engine status display. We'll wait for that to happen. There we go. Both engines spooling down. Obviously, fuel flow is stopped. Temperature dropping, and the N1, N2 RPM dropping. The nozzles are going to their idle or their stop positions, which is 0. And that's just about that. You don't have to do anything with the APU. You don't have to turn it on when you shut the engines down. That's fine. You can shut off your generators manually now if you want, as well as your battery switch. And that brings the airplane back to cold and dark. And if you want, go take a look outside. And you see what you've done with yourself. So we have left a multi-$100 million airplane unattended on the taxiway here at an operational civil airport. It's probably going to cause some problems with our superiors back at base, but that is what we have got here today with the F-18 that has come with the Game of the Year update, Microsoft Flight Simulator. Is it a study-level airplane? No, absolutely not. If you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of how do you fly an F-18, number one, join the Navy or play DCS. If you just want to have fun going supersonic and covering big distance in not so big time, this is exactly what this airplane will do. I'm sure that at some point we will get study level add-ons from third-party developers. I hope we do, because they're going to be really cool. And quite honestly, I would like to get into the nuts and bolts of flying an airplane like this. But for the time being, it's great. And I really appreciate not so much the fact that it's this airplane, because there are other fighters that I think I would have rather seen than the F-18. And certainly there are other civil airplanes that I would really have much rather seen than a fighter, because honestly, I don't really have much of an interest in combat sims. I don't have that much of an interest in fighter airplanes in general. I like the peaceful side of aviation, to be honest, so it doesn't have to be a fighter, but I do appreciate that we have it, and I appreciate that we can finally go supersonic. So it really, I think, is going to open the door to more military aircraft, both in Flight Simulator, because I know there's a Top Gun update that's going to be coming next year. That's also going to bring us the F-14, which is something that I am actually looking forward to, because if you don't like the F-14, something is wrong with you. But beyond that, I hope it opens the door to third-party developers for developing airplanes like Concorde. Really, I would like to have a good Concorde in this sim, and I know that somebody's working on it, but this now proves the concept that we can have proper supersonic flight in Flight Simulator as is, with no mods, so that's good. And that's something that we have needed for basically the year and 2 months that the sim's been out to the world, and now we've got it. So that's a big deal, and I'm quite happy to say that we can now break the Mach. Other than that, though, that's what I have got for you here today from Flight Simulator. I do hope that you did enjoy this one. Ferrari Man 601 saying thank you very much for watching, and of course, we will see you soon.